Hey everybody, hopefully you've all seen Blockbuster 3 triple feature by now. If you haven't, check it out. It's my latest, greatest production, and it is available now through the Bobby Productions homepage here on YouTube. And obviously, as I mentioned and as promised, I'm going to be saying a lot more about it. So, those of you who have seen the full movie, obviously your opinions are very valued to me. And also, just kind of from a from a storyline point of view, a lot of things going on there, obviously. A lot of different plot things. Maybe some of you were wondering how I came out, with this whole plot. Well, we don't even have an idea for the movie.
Oh, we can think of something.
You always say that.
And we always do.
Well, in the original Blockbuster 3, and I say original because I started writing this movie actually as early as 2012, but it didn't get very far. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I couldn't think of much. It was after Blockbuster 2 had ended, and you'll notice that in Blockbuster 3, the movie that I did put out, Bobby Gaines is very reluctant to make movies again. But that doesn't change the fact that this movie is just not going to happen. And it was kind of a departure from the Blockbuster 2 feel where I was literally the only character fighting for the movies. It was becoming a struggle more and more through Blockbuster 2 to get our movie done in that movie. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic to keep going with when I started Blockbuster 3. So I wrote a script, and I actually got about 15-20 scenes deep into this script. I had an idea what I wanted Blockbuster 3 to be back in 2012, and it was in some ways entirely different, in other ways kind of similar to what I put out, but the thing that was really different that I want to start with is just Bobby's character in general. I was going to stay more true to my 2011 character in Blockbuster 3. I was going to be devoted to movies, wanting to make more movies, and then Frankie was going to abandon me. That was the original plot point. Frankie was going to go off to college, kind of do his own thing, and I was going to be kind of forced to look at the reality of where do I go from here, and I would have kind of these other options, and things would get kind of crazy. Now, the thing is, obviously that would be a very boring movie if I'm just sitting here by myself with no one to film with, so I was going to have Charlie come back. That was another plot point that I always meant to have return.
I mean, Goodnight got insane amounts of hits.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so maybe you should keep it up. Maybe we should keep it up.
Now, I can't say that I always had the same fate in mind for Charlie. As you'll remember, Charlie ends up working for Officer Kira in Blockbuster 3. But in the original script I wrote up, it was more kind of a way to get Bobby back into filmmaking. I may or may not have worked conspiracy theory in later. I do kind of develop my plot lines as I go, so I can't say for sure. I will say that cinema was always meant to be in the script. Originally, he had a much different role, though. Originally, Frankie was going to go to college at this Central Northern Mass Academy. Yeah, so basically the initials would spell CNMA, cinema. Like, that was the whole original plot. And of course, most people might have figured that out, but we would almost never say the name of Frankie's school. Frankie would go off to college, and when he came back, he would be reluctant to make movies. I had a couple ideas for scenes where we do flashbacks. We would have done flashbacks to Harkness Park and previous movies, and then flash forward to the future, kind of like I did in Blockbuster 2, with Frankie not interested in movies anymore, and then kind of my take on that, and then Charlie coming back and them not getting along anymore. Or, technically, it's never really said if those characters interact that much anyway, so I was going to have some fun with that. Charlie was always going to be a big component of the movie, and actually Officer Kira was also going to be a big part of the movie. It was going to be kind of about going the direction of the whole police villain as I did. Having, the police be the ones this time trying to shut me down. Basically, Bobby's older in Blockbuster 3, and the police have just had it. Officer Kira's had it. She's going to stop Bobby now. She knows he's making a movie. Because the original plotline was kind of that basic, it was a little easier, actually, to write Officer Kira's character, because she could just be this police officer. Whereas in Blockbuster 3, the new movie, the one that I put out, it's a little more complicated than that.
You're so funny, Mr. Gaines. So fucking funny. Well, guess what? You have a subpoena to appear before Avery Point Court. The Dean, Curtis Henderson, will decide your fate.
In this original make of the script, cinema and Kira don't really relate to each other. That was kind of a weak link that I didn't tie up. And also, I don't know, Kira's plan was going to be at the forefront of the movie either way. Kira's plan to stop Bobby. And actually, that's another thing. Her name wasn't even Kira originally. The police officer could have just been anybody. It was going to be a police officer. It wasn't until later that I came up with the idea that we make her character, or even his character, because we didn't have an actor at that point, that we make that character a police officer who actually busted me for the Marine Science Building filming incident. So those of you who don't know what that is, Back in 2008, I really did go to Avery Point as a student, and I filmed a few movies, Marine Mayhem, nothing much, but I got talked to by the Avery Point staff, and eventually this escalated to the police, the Avery Point police, kind of saying, this is going on your record, and you can't film here anymore. Kind of a really sad day for me, because I had to abandon Marine Mayhem as a series, put it aside, which a lot of people will say, okay, fine, but it's a little different when you're the one who wrote it and put it together. It did hurt. It still hurts, and I thought that this movie would be kind of a great way to help me get past that and kind of just portray something else, kind of this, I don't know, like semi-justice against, like, vigilante justice, just sort of a odd type of thing. So Officer Kira, I loved her dynamic in this. That was one of the major changes going forward, was that she wasn't going to just be a random police officer anymore. She was going to be the Avery Point police officer. Were you looking for a lawyer? Shifting gears, Zach Masters was another character who was going to have a major role in this movie one way or another. Zach Masters. And it's no coincidence that the end of Blockbuster 2 culminates with Zach Masters and Charlie kind of just disappearing off the scene in different ways. It kind of set them up for a return, but you also don't know. So that's what I liked about the end of Blockbuster 2. So in Blockbuster 3, regardless, they were going to come back. That was like my main excitement for even writing that movie, was kind of just the idea of Zach Masters trying to help Bobby out, and Charlie coming back. And I thought it was interesting how I turned things, and actually Bobby's old friend didn't have his best interests in mind in this case.
I don't know what you want me to tell you. I mean, Kira said that it was in your best interests.
So then, the only thing that was left to me was kind of, how can I make this movie a little more interesting, so that we're not just watching Bobby versus a police officer, or Bobby and Frankie versus whatever. I thought, what if, I bring all my old characters back, obviously, to make it more true to the series, and I have Charlie and Bobby actually work on a new Crash Daniels movie to kind of bring some nostalgia back. And furthermore, because of the rift between Bobby and Frankie, just for other reasons, what I could do is have Frankie work with Phantom Drexler.
God, how do I agree to this? So you can drive, right?
So Phantom Drexler, for those who don't know, was the main antagonist in the first Blockbuster film. He works with Bobby and Frankie to make a movie. Things don't go so well, and through that he ends up kind of just giving up on movie making, does the Phantom, and the Phantom is actually me. Big shock. So he's actually my sense of creativity. So with me now partnered with a real life partner in Charlie with the movie that we're making, it seemed like a good idea to have Frankie have his own spin-off, and that to me is what truly made the title more resonant, what made the whole movie more resonant. Also, Blockbuster 3 didn't used to have a surname. It used to just be Blockbuster 3. The triple feature came about because of this third storyline.
I can't help but feel like you're making this up as you go along.
The final movie ended up being a combination of my ideas originally a couple years ago, but more ideas that I thought of later, such as Frankie and Drexler teaming up to kind of make a third storyline, if you will. So that's why it's called Triple Feature, in case you haven't guessed. The main struggles between Bobby and Kira. You could also argue Bobby and Cinema. But then you have these other struggles in Bobby's personal life, whether it's, Bobby trying to trust Zach Masters, or Bobby and Charlie, and then how they end up getting kind of torn apart. And then on the third side of it, you kind of have the more comedic, stylings of, what's Frankie going to do during this? Because I wanted Frankie to have close to equal, if not equal, billing on this movie. I didn't want him to just be a side character. So I thought I did what I could with that. I think he did serve a really good purpose. He's in a good part of the movie. He's, both the reason I get back into filmmaking in Blockbuster 3, as well as the reason I made it in real life. And also, he makes his own movie in this movie called Aqua X. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Aqua X is also a real movie that Frankie tried to make. So a lot of real life references ended up making this movie stronger, in my opinion. So it wasn't just a plot line kind of supplanted onto Blockbuster 2. I don't know, that's just some stuff I wanted to throw out there. As an artist, I always find it interesting to hear about people's unreleased music, unreleased material. So, anyone who watched the movie and maybe had any questions for me, I don't know how many people did, but this is kind of the thought process I went through. This is why I didn't release some of the stuff I thought of, and this is why I chose to go the direction I went. And again, there were obviously other alternate versions of the script, alternate endings, alternate portions, different things with Cinema. I'll tell you right now, there was never a version that didn't have Cinema. He was always in it. But other than that, there were variations to the point where, like I said, Charlie might not have been working with Officer Kira, but I ended up sticking with that angle. I thought it was pretty interesting. But that's what I got. I'll be talking more about this great movie in the months to come. I hope you enjoyed it. Blockbuster 3 triple feature. Check it out. Bali Productions 2014. Signing off.